准备充足的简报，当我们用视讯做完了之后，这个时候你就发现 dead silence。 那这时候我们的心中一定会慌起来，到底是自己讲得不够好，还是大家没有听得懂？那在这2集的 podcast 会让我跟 Nick 来帮助大家来解析到底为什么会冷场，要如何避免，那要如何的补救，来提升听众的参与度。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 podcast。我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享、职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.And
I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality. I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everyone, welcome back to Executive Plus Podcast, episode 56. In this episode, we're going to talk about what most online presenters' worst nightmare is. When you're talking and you realize it's completely silent. Does this mean no one cares? Does this mean no one's listening? Does it mean that the internet died and you're talking to yourself?Well, in the case of the first two, there's a few tricks and tips that we want to share with you to make sure that your audience is more engaged in your online presentation.
那在做这个单元的原因，也就是因为其实常在一些课堂中，或者是比如说非常多的客户就会询问说，他常常在做这种视讯，用视讯做简报，那有时候简报可能时间蛮长的，不止10分钟，可能多于10分钟、20分钟，或者是30分钟。那讲完了之后真的是 complete dead silence。那他们都会先问说 OK，那这种情况我到底要怎么样去让大家来问我问题，或者有多一点的 engagement？ 那我刚开始教学的时候，我都会比较着重在 alright， 所以这个时候你要怎么去 get people to ask you question。 但是 I think this goes the same with Nick, is that we both have a lot of experience doing these kind of teaching, training, even online or physical。我相信 Nick 也可以认同，就是说当我们在做这种 presentation 的时候，如果你刚开始你的这种氛围就没有把它热起来，其实当它冷掉了，它是比较难补救的。 It becomes more of a challenge to bring it back up, right?
It's definitely more of a challenge, and one of the things that people need to take into consideration is that it has a lot to do with how you planned out your presentation or your conference call before you actually get into it. Some people have asked for tricks like, okay, if I notice this happens, what do I do? And we'll share a few ideas on that. But one of the first things that you need to consider is that, are you planning to talk too much? Meaning is there any point in the conference call or in your presentation where you're talking straight for more than 5 minutes? That may not seem very long, but in a conference call situation, people can space out almost immediately. And if you aren't enforcing to have cameras on, it's very easy to check email, pick up your phone, do any number of things. So actually planning out so that either there's Q&A sessions, discussion sections, or some kind of back and forth interaction every 5 minutes at minimum, if not in less time, will make a big difference when planning this out.
所以其实我们希望能够就是真正的帮助大家能够在做这种 presentation， 你要怎么提升这种参与度，这种 engagement level。 那我们就从 preparation 开始，我们就从我们在做 presentation 的时候，你要怎么去 plan 你整个 presentation。如果你 presentation 是真的很久，是30分钟，那你要怎么去 break it up？ 你要有不同的 section。So as Nick said, it could be a Q&A session， 有可能这个地方是 wrap up， 或者是你直接中间的时候就询问大家的问题，你要自己去 plan。So 我们今天的 episode 呢，我们会比较着重在你的 planning， 就是你们在 presentation 的之前，或者是 presentation 的一刚开始，一直到 presentation 中间。那我们在下一集才会 focus 在当你做完 presentation 之后，你要怎么再让大家来问问题。
So as Sherry is talking about, online presentation and in-person presentation are not planned in the same way. You should not assume that just because I can give a 20-minute presentation where I talk the whole time and do Q&A at the end means that if I do an online presentation, I can use the same logic or the same structure. These are two different things. So one thing that you can simply do with online presentation is break things apart. Don't have one end Q&A. Have Q&A or discussion broken up into after each one of your key points. And this will help you later when you're getting into signposting phrases, which we'll talk about, to break things up, where I only have a key point and then I have a discussion about it, and then I have another key point and then I have a discussion about it. But before we get into that, let's roll back and look at how do I start a presentation? What are the things that I should do to get the presentation going and make my audience feel like they should be engaged, as opposed to, oh, great, he's starting. Time to open up, the latest Candy Crush or something on my phone, right?
所以当然一刚开始我们就是大家一定少不了的就是我们的 small talk。 那我觉得 small talk 做起来，其实它这个 small talk 的部分，我觉得很多人觉得很困难，有些人觉得说到底我要讲什么。 Because if you do these kind of like online conference call presentation every week, you kind of run out of topic. Right?
Yeah,
you
I
run out
think recently
of things.
you were told by a group of managers
Yeah.
in a major tech company, like, we can't talk about COVID anymore. Like, I can't have to bring that up every week.
Exactly.
So specifically, in my experience, when working with a large group of people that I don't know, things that I've seen hosts do really well as people come in is they don't try and make small talk with the group, because a lot of times when you make small talk with a whole group, you get silence back. Unless someone is really, really eager to talk, people don't feel like they should jump in when there's like 10, 15 people in the room.
A lot of times they don't really even know each other. Yeah.
Right. So one thing that I've seen hosts do, especially people who are used to hosting these kind of online events, online conferences more often, is as each person comes in, they'll engage with that person for just a few seconds in some small talk. So if someone joins in the room, they turn on the camera, the host will be like, oh, hey, Sherry, thanks for joining us. Where are you joining us from? Or, what time is it there in the place that you're joining us? How's your day? And they'll engage person by person. And then that person will usually respond. It'll go for a few seconds. If an interesting topic comes out of it, great, they'll follow that. But a lot of times they'll just repeat this process. So everyone who comes in the room feels welcomed, but you don't have that constant dead air. So it's like, just engage in small talk with the people who are coming in at that time.
我觉得这是一个非常好的 tip， 因为我发现有非常多类似像这样子的 conference call， 尤其是你必须要 deal with 很多是你不太熟悉的人，你可能 email 几次，但是一场可能就是10几个，那你真的是老实说做 small talk， 你没有办法说一次大家都很热烈的一起讲话，这不太可能会发生。 So one at a time， 这个人他 log in， 他的名字 pop up， 那你就说 Hey Nick, what's up? Where are you from? Where are you located? 这个时候你就一个一个的慢慢的去聊，那我相信聊到大概5个6个也差不多时间了。 You can kind of just end that small talk session, right?
Yeah. Or you can do something that if you know some of the people in the room and you don't know others in the room, that someone who comes in the room that you do know, you can actually introduce them to the group a little bit. Be like, oh, hey, everyone, I see that Sherry's here. Sherry actually had 2 backgrounds, both finance and design. And so if anyone here is ever really interested in having very different types of conversation with one person, she's a great person to talk to. And sometimes you can just create actually dynamic within the room by using who you know and introducing them to people who don't necessarily know her or know you.
So kind of like complimenting people and kind of using that as a connection.
Yeah, complimenting people and using that as a connection to, and also a catalyst to really get the conversation started.
Okay. So, 那这个部分是所谓的 small talk 的部分。那当然在接下来 small talk 完了之后呢，还是有一件事情你可以做的，就是如果你是这个主持人，那如果你等一下马上要进入你的 presentation 了，我建议你还是要有一个 set up， 就是你不要马上就跳进去，就是说Oh, hi everyone, you know, today I want to talk about this. 你要稍微有一个 welcoming 部分。You can say, hi everyone, I know it's late and everyone's eager to get out of work, so I just want to make sure that this is as efficient as possible, and I welcome everyone to kind of share your ideas and insight after my presentation. 就大概做一下这样子的这种欢迎的 speech， 让大家比较有那种 OK， 准备一下，你再进入你的 topic。And
you can also use this section to clarify with people, again, this is not going to be me talking for 20 minutes, that the structure of your presentation may require a lot more back and forth discussion. So it's like, I want to make this as efficient as possible. I welcome everyone to share any ideas or insights. In fact, after I make a few key points, I want to have a little bit back and forth before I jump into the next thing, so I'm not the only one talking the whole time.Yeah,
that's right. So 你要怎么样去 plan 你的这个 presentation， 你这个时候你就可以大概让大家知道一下，大家才知道说他可能要准备要讲话，他要好好的认真听，因为大概5分钟之后they need to ask the question now. Yeah.
All right. So if you've set this up well, again, you've made it clear that there's going to be back and forth, there's going to be discussion, and ideally you've restructured your presentation so you don't talk the whole time. Then you can get into something that we've talked about in a previous episode 25, but signposting phrases, which means if I have hit my first key point inside the presentation, how do I highlight that and how do I get people back engaged with my discussion?
Signposting phrases 真的是非常非常的重要。Even though I think I joined this clubhouse discussion once, it was like a pitch for investors. And 这很多 clubhouse 这种 pitching 的这种practice room， 它通常都是只有叫你讲3分钟。I think I remember correctly, it was only like a 3 minute. 就算在这个3分钟里面，这些很多人都会建议说，你如果要做这个 pitch 3分钟，你还是要用到 signposting phrases， 因为大家的 attention span 是非常短的。有些人听一听，大概不到1分钟，他就会他的思绪就会往别的地方去了。所以 signposting phrases 它的用处是让大家的 attention 能够回来，你要把他们抓回来。So things like, for example, you can use a lot of verbs like stress or draw your attention to, emphasize or focus on. 类似像这样子的动词，所以句子可以是 I like to stress the following key features of our products. 类似像这样子能够让大家听到说重点来了，等一下就是我必须要记下来的地方。
Another technique that you can use is by using what at the beginning of the sentence. So the same verbs, but rephrasing it to say something like, what we need to focus on is, or what's extremely important is, what we should do is talk about this thing. But that what, and then your verb also outlines like the key discussion points.
因为我觉得用 what 当一个句子的开头，它其实是很快速的能够让大家很清楚的知道你等一下要说什么。 Right? It's some kind of, I don't know why this is this way. There's some kind of magic thing about starting your sentence with what.
Well, anytime that you start a sentence that feels like a question, starting with what or why, because questions are things people are used to answering, they immediately perk up. Which actually brings into our next technique of using rhetorical questions. Questions that you don't necessarily expect an answer to, but you're using that same brain trick. By asking a rhetorical question, it gets people to perk up because they're ready for an answer or they're ready for some kind of information. So a rhetorical question may sound something like, just how important is this? Or, what are the solutions to these issues?
所以这些问题的时候，当然 rhetorical question 就是你其实不需要自己去回答，就是让观众去思考的这些问题。当他们在思考的时候，你就会开始讲了这些 answers， 这些重要的答案。So 我们今天所讲到了，也就是当你在做这种 conference call presentation 之前的准备，你要怎么去 section 你的 presentation？ 那你的 small talk。或者是你在 beginning presentation 你该用什么样的方式来欢迎大家，还有就是在你 presentation 中间的时候，你该用什么样的字去让大家更能够去专注你的 presentation。
In the next part of this two-part series, we're going to look at how to close out your presentation and handle the Q&A section more effectively to keep people engaged. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast， 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook， 那也可以写信到我们的信箱 yourcareerplus@gmail.com。